Before we watched TV shows and movies on Narcos, and even before Pablo Escobar's rise to fame, there was one man who was the ultimate narco. He lived the narco life of greed, money, and power, but found a way to reclaim his life and use his astonishing experiences to empower others to live a life of hope, meaning, and redemption. Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast, where Dr. Jorge Valdes shares his journey through life before and after the Medellin Drug Cartel, from torture and multiple prison sentences to how he refocused his life onto a path of principles learned as a narco. It's time to share that raw truth with you, right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast, with your host, Dr. Jorge Valdes.
Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast. My name is Dr. Jorge Valdes. Today I will share with you two-part interview that I did on the Talk of Shame podcast. It was quite fascinating with my buddy in Ireland. I was very excited to do this episode. Two reasons. Number one, because I love Irish whiskey. Number two, because it's a pretty fascinating podcast. He asked some really hard questions about my old days in the cartel. He asked some questions about whether Griselda Blanco was more powerful than Pablo Escobar or whether they worked together. What was my opinion? Stay tuned. You will find all the answers on the Narco Mindset Podcast.
Welcome to episode number 30. We're at 30. Wow. Of Talk of Shame podcast. My name is Barry John, and this is part number 2 of the Jorge Valdes interview. For those of you who haven't heard part 1, make sure you listen to episode number 29. Jorge Valdes was the head of the American arm of the Medellin Cartel. At one stage, he was the biggest drug dealer in the United States, which makes him pretty close to being one of the biggest drug dealers in the world. In part 2, we're going to talk a lot more about both Pablo Escobar and Griselda Blanco. We're also going to talk about the relationship between, let's say, the Medellin Drug Cartel and the likes of the Italian Mafia and other mafias within the United States. And we are also going to talk about El Chapo Guzman and his trial and the state of, I suppose, both the Colombian cartels and the Mexican cartels and how they actually interact with each other, whether they're enemies or whether they're business partners. So it's all very interesting. If you enjoy this content, make sure you hit that subscribe button now and make sure you follow on Instagram at Talk of Shame Pod. Enjoy this episode. Going back to, I suppose, the narcotics industry, I know I touched on Griselda Blanco a little bit earlier on. Something else that I always thought, obviously, like the per se, like you saw one thing in Cocaine Cowboys when she was obviously portrayed as a very big time player. I don't know how accurate that is. You're going to know more than me on that. But say the likes of herself and somebody like Pablo Escobar, would they have been partners or would they have been in competition with each other? Or how did that work, George?
Okay, so let's put it this way. The minute she went back to Colombia, they killed her immediately.
Yeah.
She was as ruthless as Pablo was. She was big in New York. Not as big as they said that she... Like, again, the biggest people in the drug world, nobody knows about. Yeah, so they were not out there flashing it in the people's face.
Yeah.
Now, she was big. I didn't know her, so I cannot say anything about all I know is the comments from those that knew her. And, was she big? Yeah, she was big in the States. Was she in the demand in the United States is so much. Think about it. The United States consumes, 90% of the world's production narcotics?
Yeah.
So the demand was so much that there was enough room for Pablo, Ochoa, not El Chapo, Gacha, and Frank Jimenez. Us, so there was enormous demand.
Yeah.
So there was not one group that controlled.
I got you.
Anything like that. In the beginning, it was that group that I represented. That group controlled 95% of all the cocaine.
And then I suppose once the demand grew, I suppose it's the same as anything else. You're going to get other people getting involved, right?
Right. Exactly.
So Pablo Escobar, which is obviously a household name. And he's somebody that, like everybody around the world knows who Pablo Escobar, like El Chapo Guzman. Everyone knows who they are. Like, I know that you had dealings with Pablo Escobar. Like, how in contact with Pablo Escobar were you? Have you met him face to face? Like, what kind of dealings did you have with him?
Well, I had a lot. I brought in a lot of loads with them.
Okay.
Because one of the things that I always did, and actually I learned it from the way I ran my businesses, and is this: I always believe that every employee is going to get a bonus. The question is, are you going to give it to them or they're going to take it?
Yeah.
So, for example, in my organization, I'm paying my employees $5,000 a week. Back in 1977, that's a lot of money. That's like $30,000 now.
Yeah.
But they're collecting $80 million for us.
Yeah.
Right? And they know I'm making $1 million. Sooner or later, human greed will come in and say, hey, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the month, I had a profit sharing. Hey, we made this much, and I give them an extra bonus, $20,000, $30,000 a piece. They were super happy.
Yeah.
So it was maybe $150,000 less for me, $200,000. It didn't matter, but I didn't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
So what happened was when Pablo and them surfaced, I decided that if I'm going to bring in a load of, let's say, 600 kilos, right? Yeah. Half of the load will belong to my partners and I.
Yeah.
300. And then the other 300 kilos, I would divide it 100 for Pablo, 100 for Gotcha, and 100 for another guy.
Yeah.
So I will bring in enough for everybody so that, because one of the things about Pablo, man, he was extremely jealous. I mean, he killed this one guy, Frank Jimenez, only over the fact that at a party, the guy said, hey, Pablo's got all the fame, but I got all the money.
Yeah. And he killed him.
Pablo killed him and killed his whole family.
Yeah.
So
wasn't there something where, like, trust was obviously something, you've seen this in some movies like Blow, or you've seen a lot of the ones where he features, and trust was something which was very important to Pablo Escobar. And I remember hearing a story where he actually rang you and he said, listen, George, something about charging people an insurance fee for bringing in loads into the States. What was that?
So I always told my employees from day one, nobody dies for telling the truth.
Yeah.
Nobody dies. Don't ever lie about nothing, no matter how painful the truth is. So as we're going, I say, we brought in quite a few loads. Never lost one ever. He called me up and said, hey, we're going to charge insurance. And I was like perplexed. So we were charging $7,000 a kilo, because even when he brought 100 kilos of his, it wasn't all his. Yeah. He'd get his friends. He let a friend bring 10, another 5, and then he would charge him freight.
Yeah.
And then, make some of his come out for free. His freight.
Yeah.
That we call, right? At that time, transportation was between $5,000 and $7,000 a kilo.
Yeah.
So he said, I'm going to start selling insurance for $10,000 a kilo.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do you mean? And he says, well, so let's say that we lose a load and someone gave me 50 kilos, but pay me the insurance, which is 10,000 total instead of 7. Then what I do is I return the cocaine back to them here. So they lose nothing but time. And I'm like, why would we want to do that? We've never lost a load. And he's like, because every third load, I'm going to say that we lost one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? He said, yeah, because number one, they're not going to lose anything. But number two, then I'm going to have all the cocaine in Miami. Yeah. At that time, cocaine in Colombia was $2,000 a kilo.
Yeah.
When we started, it was 18,000 to 21,000.
Sure.
Now, in 1986, it was $2,000 a kilo. Yeah. He said, I'm going to have those kilos in Miami at 2,000. And all I got to do is give it to them here. So I ended up bringing all this load with their cocaine, literally, right?
Yeah.
So I looked at him. I'm like, Pablo, I'm sorry. I can't participate in that.
Yeah.
And he was shocked. And I said, why? I said, because it's a lie. If I lie with you against somebody, what happens one day when somebody comes and gives you a lie about me and you might believe it?
Yeah.
Man, I'm going to tell you, brother, it was prophetic.
Yeah.
Prophetic.
Yeah.
Because I get a call one day from this guy who's a hitman.
Yeah.
Now, thank God I knew him. Victor was the guy's name. I knew him very, very well because he worked for the guy that Pablo killed.
Yeah.
Okay. And I did him a lot of favor when they killed his boss. So he says, I have a contract on you. I was sent here by Pablo to kill you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? He says, I came because I have so much respect for you and I know there's some mistake.
Yeah.
And so anyway, long story, we called Pablo. And what happened was that I was bringing in a load through Juarez, Mexico, and there was an operation going on in Juarez. So the pilots shifted the load to outside of Houston, right? Yeah. Well, it happened to be a farm that Pablo owned and he was preparing to use it, right? Mm-hmm. Because whenever you buy a farm, you put a strip, you don't bring your load immediately. You start bringing airplanes from Mexico, from other part of Latin America, so that people get used to it before you bring in that. And when that guy got caught, he said that I authorized him to use it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the guy. I didn't even know that strip belonged to Pablo.
Okay.
So they put him on the phone, and I'm like, first and foremost, you know that I don't lie. You know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Number two, I did not know that was your strip. Number three, think about it. If I had known it was, I would have asked you for it. And you would have given it to me because I gave you mine.
Yeah.
And he's like, sorry, and hung up the phone.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it.
Yeah.
But had I participated in the lie with him,
then he's going to think you're a liar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I get it. I suppose another thing that I always wondered is, obviously you were working at the top of the game, at the top of the drugs game, I suppose, in the US, which is the top of the world's drugs game, George. So I suppose at the peak of your time, it would have also probably been around the peak of, say, for instance, the Five Families, the Italian mafia. And like they would have been, obviously, like they say, a lot of them tried to say that they weren't dealing in the narcotics trade, which I think is pretty much known to be bullshit. But in terms of, would the cartels, like the Colombian cartels, would they be dealing directly with the likes of, obviously, like a local mafia, like the New York Five Families, and mafias like the Russian mafia? Like, what would the relationship be like there?
Okay, so when I went to prison, I don't know what happened. I've heard some old mafia figures talk about how they were involved in narcotics heavily.
Yeah.
I don't know that to be true or not. I know during my time, we didn't deal with them at all.
Okay.
Zero. Our clients were mostly people in Miami were Cubans.
Yeah. Okay.
In LA was Americans that were tied into the entertainment industry.
Okay.
And that was our two biggest market. Now, some of our people in Miami sold to New York, California, but I don't know if they sold to any big mafia boss or anything like that.
Yeah. I
know one time I was asked by one to trade him cocaine for heroin because they did control the heroin trade in the 60s and so that early on.
Sure.
And I refused. I said, look, I don't get it. I respect what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't get involved in a crime that kills children.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was 21, 22, and I walked away. Whether they respected what I said or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know we had no fear of them. I know that they had a lot of assassins, but I make a phone call and I have 1,000 Colombians.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would have thought that the cartels are bigger.
Because the thing with the cartel, the thing with the American mafia.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect because some of my closest friends in prison were like big in the mob, Italian. And Italians and Cubans have always gone along very, very well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have tremendous respect. I love Italy.
Yeah.
And I have respect for everybody.
Sure.
But one of the things with them is that we knew who they all were, right?
Yeah.
You know the houses, you know where they lived, who they are. Nobody knew who we were.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If I make a phone call and we have 500 trigger men, they don't know where we are.
Yeah, yeah.
I can go to Colombia and have 500 Colombians that no one knew, killing every Italian that walked around. Now, I'm not saying we were more powerful than them or not. I had a lot of respect for them.
Yeah.
And I respect those that are now talking publicly about it in their life.
Yeah.
And but I had no dealings at all.
Fair enough.
At all. And my group, I know till 1979, when I went to prison, we had not sold 1 gram to any member of the mafia or the Cosa Nostra or whatever, you know.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's interesting. And I suppose,
and not because we had anything against them.
Sure,
we were not approached by it. When I was approached, it wasn't about buying from us. When I was approached, it was about trading them for heroin that I didn't want to get involved with.
Yeah.
But had I been approached, most likely, I don't know. It's a hard call.
Do you think that's changed now, George? Do you think say, for instance, obviously, I suppose my next question was going to be the kind of power change between the Colombian cartels in, say, the 70s and 80s and I suppose even 90s, and then it started going into the Mexican cartels and the power shift there. Do you think now that the Mexican cartels would be dealing with groups like that? Because obviously cocaine has very much become kind of the fashion drug, and it's been done, I suppose, a lot more. And you've had the explosion of crack cocaine in certain societies in the US as well, you know?
Yeah, I would imagine that they are, for one reason. I mean, I don't know a person because I never knew him, but I know a lot of people that know.
Okay.
El Chapo is the only man to have distribution in every continent of the world.
Yeah.
You know, so was he dealing? But I don't know if the mafia today is what it used to be.
No, it's it doesn't look.
From the interviews, the YouTube interviews that I have seen of some of the members of the Gambino family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, in the old days, man, people die and not talk.
Yeah.
You know, now everybody talks.
Yeah.
So. You know, is it
different generation?
You know, the bosses would die without talking. From what I hear, I don't have personal knowledge of it. You know, all the bosses talk now because the RICO laws really messed everything up, man.
Yeah, it really.
You know, listen, when you're looking at spend the rest of your life in jail, man, and the thing about it was, I knew that when I went to prison, it was 15 years. And I knew that the people that I was standing up for were going to betray me, but I did it because it was my code. You know, I didn't want my children to ever turn their back on someone because of something their father did. I've lived my whole life in a manner that if someone meets someone that they know, and one of my kids meets someone that knew me, they'll say, "Man, your father was loud. Your father was obnoxious." Anything in the world. But at the end, they better say, your father was a man of honor. A
man of principle and honor. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's important. I think it's a generational thing. And I think a lot of that has gone, not just in organized crime. I think that's across the board, unfortunately, where I think kind of like that kind of an old school attitude, it's just not there as much anymore, is it?
Oh, I just listened to an interview of this guy that was like the most wanted by the Secret Service, and he had all those mortgage scams, and he's like, I ratted everybody out. In my old days, man, to be called a rat was the most horrific thing a human being can be. I ratted on people in my cell.
Yeah.
So if you're arrested today and you know that who you're standing quiet for, the minute he get a chance or she gets a chance to turn on you, I don't know what would happen.
Yeah,
you know, I'm glad I'm from the old world, man.
Yeah, different times. With the Colombian cartels and the shift in kind of, I suppose the shift in power where you see like all the Lazetas, Sinaloa cartel, the Gulf cartel in Mexico, and it seems like that seems to be where the real, I suppose, they're the biggest, where the Colombians in your time were the biggest in the narcotics trade. Like, why did that happen? And I suppose a follow-up question to that would be, are the Colombian cartels and the Mexican cartels, are they working hand in hand, or are they like rivals, or what way does that relationship look, George?
I think that they're working hand in hand, and it was easy explanation what happened.
Okay.
I saw it coming. When things became very difficult to smuggle directly to the U.S., I mean, think about it. When I started in 76, we're bringing big old loads right to Miami International Airport.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we were landing airplanes in my ranch left and right.
Yeah.
Then they shifted to the islands.
Yeah.
And then when all that became very difficult, Mexico was the logical point. Why? Because there's thousands of miles of Mexican border.
Yeah, yeah.
With the U.S. So for a long time, all Mexico did was transport for the Colombians. Yeah. But like human nature, like everything else, hey, if I'm the one that's making you super rich, because there's only X amount I'm going to get paid for transportation. Yeah. But I can make 3 times as much if I own the product or if I sell the product. So that's human nature, that transition. And the Mexicans are very, very smart. You know, they thinking that when I see the government talk about building a wall to stop drug traffic, I crack up, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's the biggest joke in the world. Now, build a wall to stop human trafficking. I'll go for that because that's horrific. But who the hell thinks that massive loads of cocaine are coming across the border by someone jumping a freaking wall?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Listen, they have submarines.
Yeah.
They have semis with very, very concealed departments. I mean, we have ways of transporting that you can put 100 dogs right on top of the cocaine and not smell it.
Really?
And you can't find it.
Yeah, yeah.
So now they got more sophisticated.
Yeah.
You fly at a low altitude and you come from that border in Mexico, you come to all kinds of strips in the U.S.
Yeah, yeah.
And then corruption. If you're a border agent, right, and you're getting paid $50,000, remember something. This was a theory we had. Everybody has a friend, right? And every friend has a friend.
Yeah.
So you're a border agent. I know you are.
Yeah.
And you're making $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And one of your best friends is a good friend of mine.
Yeah, yeah.
And I go to him, I said, look, tell your friend that I'm going to give him $50,000 for doing just this.
Yeah.
Not search that semi very hard. I mean, he's not even going to risk himself. He's not carrying the cocaine, touching the cocaine.
Yeah, yeah.
They can exhaustively search every vehicle that comes across the border.
There's thousands of vehicles coming in every day in Tijuana and Juarez and all these places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when they say that, I laugh.
Yeah.
Because, you might stop, illegal immigrants, but when a person's hungry enough, he don't give a shit how big your wall is. He's going to climb that wall.
Yeah,
but you're not going to don't use that you're stopping drug dealing because the war on drugs is the biggest joke in the world.
Yeah, it is.
Cocaine is 15% of all drug overdose in America, and that's too much.
Yeah,
but that's what we spent 90% of billions and billions of dollars over a span of 40 years with zero impact. Why are we not going after big pharma? That's 65% of all the drug overdose in America.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened now? We're quarantined. What's open? Drug companies.
Yeah.
Pharmacies.
Yeah.
Now they can deliver to your house.
Yeah. Purdue Pharma. Look at the big Purdue Pharma scandal.
Yeah.
It's
but
crazy.
Pharma has a lot of power.
Yeah.
As long as it costs $1 billion to run for president and $300-400 million to run for Senate.
Yeah.
Where's that going to come from? $10 donations?
Yeah.
Give me a laugh, man.
Yeah.
If in 1977,
yeah,
we were spending $1 million a month in corruption. How much do you think the drug cartels are spending now?
Yeah.
How many politicians do you think are on the payroll?
I know, yeah.
So,
and it's good. Like, it seems that it seems that the drug situation is getting worse, and they're spending it hasn't improved. It's getting worse. More people are doing drugs than back in say your generation. I would have thought
because they don't want to stop it. See, that's the problem. People think they want to stop it. They don't. The problem is that most Americans don't give a damn because we're ignorant, right?
Yeah.
Because we think it's not affecting us. First of all, tell yourself, all that drug money in that drug war is your taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. That
can be used to provide health care for people suffering in America without health care.
Yeah.
That can be used to equal the balance where 85% of Americans have less than $400 in savings.
Yeah.
When we have the greatest unemployment history and the highest stock market.
Yeah.
Use your common sense, right? So they don't want to stop that. It all started with Nixon. Nixon had it right at the beginning. When Nixon declared war on drugs, he went after creating the methadone clinics in New York.
Yeah.
And Nixon stopped the heroin trade. When Reagan came aboard and said, we're going after the dealers, we started applauding.
Yeah.
We're like, good deal, man. You're not going to catch us.
Yeah.
Number one, but just leave our customers alone.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
We got to address the demand.
Yeah. One of the big things that I've kind of noticed, and obviously I'm looking from afar, when you're looking at, say, in the Pablo Escobar era in Colombia, that was very similar to what's happening in Mexico now, where there was extreme violence and like the kind of it was making worldwide news, and just the whole shock of it all. Whereas I think, and I'm just looking from afar, and I might be wrong in this, but looking at, say, Colombia now, it seems that the cartels that are operating now have learned a lesson from that, whereas now all of the spotlight is on Mexico. The Colombian cartels, you never really hear anything about them, and they're definitely still there producing it.
Oh, yeah.
But like they seem to have learned a lesson in the fact that like they're kind of flying under the radar now, you know?
Colombians are very, very smart. Yeah. And the thing about it was interesting with the Mexican cartels is that the violence, which was different from Pablo, there was a lot of innocent people died with Pablo's reign.
Yeah.
Bombs. I mean, the whole the entire Supreme Court Justice building blown up, airplanes blown up. The Mexican cartels are killing each other.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there's not an innocent person here or there. But in reality, 95% of everyone dying from the Mexican cartel wars is them.
Yeah.
So let them kill themselves.
Yeah.
Under Pablo, it was different. Pablo he wanted to create terror in the country,
blowing up airplanes and stuff.
Right, because what drives politicians? Public opinion.
Yeah.
Right. So as long as the public is quiet, nobody cares. But when the public, it gets to a point that people couldn't go outside.
Yeah.
You know.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, what's your opinion on the whole El Chapo trial? What was your opinion on that?
My opinion was that the Chapo was crazy, man.
Yeah.
The Chapo, I mean, think about it. And this happens with a lot of them. Going back to what I told you, the difference between a businessman and a drug dealer.
Yeah.
What the hell, Chapo, the most wanted man in the world, just finished doing 2 escapes. Every agency on earth is doing. What the hell is he doing meeting with Sean Penn and Kate Castillo?
Yeah, crazy.
Come on, dude.
Crazy.
Why are you not in an airplane to one of those countries that has no extradition?
Yeah.
You're going to live like a king. You can have a harem.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I don't think anyone really understood that one. Like, I've heard a lot of people talking about that, and it's just like, what was he thinking? What was he thinking?
And you know what? I at one time I wrote a paper when I was in prison.
Yeah.
And I called it the excitement of the game, but the thrill of defeat.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't know if you heard the statistic that they said that 6 out of 10 bank robbers get caught at the scene because they come back to the scene of the robbery.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I didn't know that.
I say that I think that to allow these people, the thrill, the big payoff psychologically is getting caught.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why?
Yeah.
Think about why Pablo killed those 2 guys over nothing.
Yeah.
Why all that greed when you have so much freaking money, man?
Yeah.
How did the war start with the Cali cartel? The Cali cartel were the most decent people in the world.
Yeah.
How did it start? Because the Cali cartel was another hothead like Pablo.
Yeah.
And Pablo taxed everybody, right? He's fighting the war. Extradition is going to benefit everyone, rightfully so. So let's say that we all had to pay $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
You know, everybody paid it. So one of them, Pacho Herrera of the Cali cartel, from what I've been told, was late, or for whatever reason, thought that Pablo should go. I don't know what it was. Anyway.
Yeah.
So Pablo threatened him. He threatened him back, and then it starts a whole over nothing.
Yeah.
Like, Pablo, why does he have to run for Congress when he's making millions of dollars?
Yeah.
You know, it's like this guys in this series that's going to come out, Cocaine Cowboy. they worked for me at the beginning. They were dead broke. They were selling grams at a discotheque.
Yeah.
When I was bringing in thousands of kilos, and I gave them a chance. And because one of them was my best friend. His father was my father's best friend from birth.
Yeah.
I gave him, when I went to prison and I realized I couldn't run the operation from prison, I handed everything to them, and they became very powerful.
Yeah.
So what's the first thing they started to do? They started to become world champion boat racers. Now, everyone knows that it costs a ton of money to run boats.
Yeah.
So how does a high school dropout justify the millions of dollars to run this boat that costs millions of dollars?
Yeah.
So one day I said to the guy, I'm like, what are you doing, man? You're not a freaking celebrity. You're a drug dealer, man.
Yeah. See, that's the thing where you're bringing this, where people do that and they're driving all the flash cars and whatever. And if you're doing that and you're flaunting that in front of law enforcement, I mean, what do you think's going to happen, you know?
Hey, look at John Gotti, perfect example.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at the old-time mobsters. How did nobody knew them, man?
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
And that's I sit back until I decided to come out and start talking. I sit back and I hear all this stuff, and it's like, you know, really? Nobody really knows who the big guys are.
Yeah.
I give you names that no one even knows. You never heard of one time.
Yeah.
And these people would do circles around Pablo Escobar.
Yeah.
These people were multi-millionaire, own coal mines, emerald mines, the biggest construction companies in Colombia when Pablo Escobar was robbing tombstones.
Yeah. It's mad. It's crazy. No. Listen, last two questions, because you've been super generous with your time, but one of the questions, and this is kind of a general one, but I know you've lived a crazy life, George, and I'd be interested to know, what's the craziest experience that you had in your whole career in the narcotics industry? Okay, so when we decide to, when in 1970, late 78, I get approached by the Bolivian government. Yeah. Right? Where they want to deal directly with me. Yeah. So we're paying $18,000 to $20,000 a kilo in Colombia. It was $10,000 in Bolivia. And they were willing to give me one on credit versus for every kilo I bought, they'll give me one on credit, right? Yeah. So I'm buying it for half the price, but I'm getting twice as much, right? So literally, instead of making $1 million, we can make $7 million a month, 2-3 times a month. Yeah. So I arrange the whole deal. Go to Bolivia, meet with them. I take him $1,500,000. And when we're getting ready to do the load, they say to me that my guy that's down there says they betrayed you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, the only cocaine here is the one you bought. Yeah. The one on credit is not here. Yeah. Now, I'm 23 years old. If you look at my book, the picture of my book, I look like a nerd, right? Yeah. I get on an airplane and I go down there and I'm meeting with this general who's overthrown 5 governments. And I look at him, I said, if you fuck me, I will kill you. Yeah. He looked at me. Now, the guy next to me peed in his pants. He looked at me and said, you're either the craziest SOB I ever met, yeah, or you're the dumbest bastard. If you ever say that to me again, I'll kill you. Yeah. Now, it was so stupid to say that because here I am, a 23-year-old kid in the guy's country where he's overthrown presidents and governments who did not care about killing anybody. So that was a crazy one. Yeah. Another one was I get a call, and this is I'll leave you with this thought because this is interesting that I just wrote in my Narco Mindset journal. Yeah. And because people ask me about mindset, right? And I tell them, hey, I devised this 12 weeks where you can build what I call the ultimate narco mindset. Yeah. The one that has no fear, the one that survived prison, the one that built multi-million-dollar company. Yeah. So I get a call about 3 o'clock in the morning from my right-hand guy. And this is at a time in Miami that was considered the deadliest city in the world. Yeah, yeah. So he went to go to his house, and when he went to go in about 3 o'clock in the morning, he hears this rumbling. Huh. He was smart enough not to go inside his house. Yeah. He ran behind his house to another set of houses and got into somebody's house. Okay.
And he called me because these people now, they see that they're chasing them and they're knocking houses down with machine guns looking for this guy. And he tells me where he's at. And I don't think twice about I can send people to go get him. I'm a quarter of a mile from his house. I'm a quarter of a kilometer. So I had a Bronco at that time. One of my vehicles I had was a Bronco because I used to take that to my ranch. I get on the Bronco 3:00 in the morning in Miami, and I'm driving on the sidewalk to get to this door, and I'm talking to him on the cell phone to open the door where he gets in my car, and we get away. But they shot us 28 times.
They shot your car?
28 times.
Jesus.
When we got off, look at the car, it looked like a strainer. Like a strainer. But we didn't have a scratch. A scratch. So I tell people, why have no fear? Because I say that when my day comes, I'm a Christian, so I believe the Bible. The Bible says my days are numbered. Now, that don't mean I jump in front of a train. And if as a Christian, if I live for Christ. And if I die, I believe I'm going to be with him. And if I don't, I lose nothing. I can lose. Right? Yeah. So my job is not to preach religion or to teach people about converting or nothing, because the guy that changed my life never asked me to go to church, never asked me to become anything. My life is to tell people how the love of a Jewish carpenter transformed my life. The most hardened of all hearts. And then I say, if the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, just buy another damn pair of shoes.
I got you.
But why I got the piece I got? Because I try to follow the teachings of this Jewish guy. I mean, people can hate Christianity, religion, but who the hell has got a problem with a guy that all he did was love the unlovable, man?
You seem like you're in a lot happier place now in your life, and you seem like you're like, obviously you're a family man, and obviously and I was looking at something, and there was an interview with your wife, and your wife was saying, look, that there was that Jorge Valdes, and I didn't marry him, I married this guy, and this guy's like, you seem like you've obviously completely reinvented. Look, you lived that life, you lived a crazy life, but you're living a completely different life now, and you seem happy. Oh yeah, because I tell people, listen, we'll pay for the choices we make, right? There's choices and consequences. But our past does not need to define our future. Sure. We can reinvent ourselves. We can find hope. We can find redemption. Look at my wife. When I met my wife, I had decided I have been celibate for 7 years. Now, a guy that I could not go to bed and have intercourse unless I was in bed with 2 or 3 women. For years. When I met my wife and I realized that, she looked at me and she said, I want to tell you something. I'm poor. I was very poor at that time too. My father is a waiter. My mother cleans houses for a living. All I got to give a man is what God's given me. If that's the woman you're looking for, fine. So somehow it worked, our relationship. But when we got engaged and we dated for 2 years, celibate, literally pure. You know what my prayer was for 2 years? God be my witness. Lord, do you think I can have sex with just one woman? Can I have sex with this girl who's a virgin and never experienced anything, when all I've been doing is having sex with porn actresses, with crazy women? And today I have 6 children. I just turned 64. I just celebrated my youngest daughter graduation. I had all my 6 kids here, 4 grandkids, 2 amazing in-laws, son-in-law and a daughter-in-law. And I live a good life. Don't get me wrong, you know. And but compared to the life I live, I'm a pauper. Hey, and you know what? You look good. You look young, you look fit. It doesn't matter, man, because you know I live every day to make a difference in someone's life. No one thinks about this, and this is how I live my life. When the pages of history are written, will history ever remember your name? I don't want history to remember my name because I was this drug dealer or I built $1 million business. No, I believe that history only remembers the name of those people that impact another life. Good deeds, That's why I hurt for those young African Americans, those young Latinos born in those horrific. No, I feel you. It breaks my heart. And one of the missions I do
all the proceeds of my book sales, all the proceeds of everything I do, I buy books to send to prison.
Yeah.
This year alone, we have sent 20,000 books.
Yeah.
Every book is read by 10 men, women, or children.
Yeah.
So over 200,000 people, as of today, this year, we've sent hundreds before, have read a story of hope, a story of redemption. I get hundreds of letters saying how it had changed their life, how they found the meaning they were looking for. And that's all I care about. Yeah. So when my day comes, don't bother me, man. I didn't think I lived past 25.
Hey, I know.
40 years, brother. 40 years.
That's good.
Way fast, but I thought I lived.
That's good. Listen, we'll finish on that. Thank you. So I can't thank you enough for coming on. You're a good guy. Really liked talking to you. And look, if you are ever in Ireland, I wasn't joking. If you're ever in Ireland,
you owe me some good Irish whiskey.
I owe you some good Irish whiskey, and let's do it. Thank you so much, and stay safe, George. Okay.
And stay in touch. Listen, have people come to my webpage. If they sign on to our community, they get a free copy of my book, and that way they can get an idea. Follow us. Like I said, at the end of the year, there's going to be a big series of Cocaine Cowboys where they're going to get the whole story. It's going to be powerful.
Looking forward to it. Can't wait to see it. You're a good man. Thanks, George. Thanks,
God bless
buddy.
You.
Bye. Thank you again, Jorge Valdes. I really enjoyed talking to him. That was super interesting. You don't get to speak to someone from the Medellin Drug Cartel and one of the founding members, and somebody who works so closely with Pablo Escobar every day. That was a bit surreal, but definitely a good guy and very interesting. I enjoyed speaking to him.
I hope you have enjoyed this 2-part episode of the Talk of Shame podcast. Part 2 gets a little more gritty. Again, if you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe to it and also share it with all your circle of friends. We're trying to make a difference in the world. I need your help so that we can spread the word. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to the Narco Mindset podcast. I look forward to seeing you again next week on another episode of the Narco Mindset podcast.
We've come to the conclusion of this episode of the Narco Mindset Podcast, but your path towards hope, meaning, and redemption continues. For more information and resources to help you on your path towards finding a life built on integrity, honor, and truth, head to JorgeValdesPh.D.com and join our community. We appreciate you joining us for this episode and look forward to helping you find your turning point right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast.